Cal, I'd be interested in what motivated the White House to organize these 100 youth roundtables, and what is the White House's goal? What do they want to accomplish?
It's a good question. I think, you know, one of the reasons the president wanted to put this initiative together was because you know, being stuck in D.C. and kind of restricted to Washington, you don't often have the opportunity to really hear from small groups of folks on on the ground who are doing the real heavy lifting, or who are actually engaged already, and to learn from them. And I think that's a particular challenge with youth outreach in our office, because young people, unlike a lot of other constituency groups, don't have a singular advocacy group or even a large advocacy group that represents them in Washington. There are branches of faith organizations, branches of political organizations. You know, there are Young Dems and Young Republicans, and Center for American Progress has a youth contingent, Campus Progress. But there's really no singular group, the same way that there is something like the NAACP or AARP. So this was an opportunity for the president to continue the conversations that he has when he tours around, but really at the staff level, where we can talk to folks about the issues that matter most to them, offer some guidance on what we're working on, and then more importantly, take something away. So take away what the success stories are in their communities, and really capitalize on the strength that the White House has as a convening space, or as the bully pulpit even. Yeah. We had some great examples so far. We're not even done with the initiative. There was a story we heard. There was a kid. I always tell the story because it really moved me. He had to walk 2 miles to get the city bus. And so he and his friends got together and said, well, how do we reroute the city bus map? Because we don't, walking 2 miles means that we can't access the same jobs as others. It takes longer to get to school or higher education. So they did this successfully, and the city actually ended up saving money because it was such an archaic bus route. Nobody bothered to look at it for a while to see if it was making any money. Yeah. So stories like that the White House could never get involved in before they happen, but there's no reason why we shouldn't help these young folks elevate that conversation. And then how many other communities around the country are struggling with the same thing? How many other young folks could learn from that model of success?
Yeah. That's a wonderful story, and I'd like to get some more detail on it, because one of the things we're very interested in is promoting active citizenship by presenting case studies of citizens who have used their rights and responsibilities to accomplish what seemed to be an unrealizable outcome. We're having one example of that here at the Graham Center. I was surprised to find that the University of Florida, in its mission statement, had no reference to citizenship as being one of its objectives. So I got together with some of the students and first asked them, did they think that was a problem? They did. And I said, well, would you be willing to work on this first by writing what you think should be in the mission statement of the university as it relates to citizenship, and then using your political skills to actually get it accomplished? And they are now almost in the end zone with that accomplishment. So I'm a great believer in giving people a chance to demonstrate what they can do. That not only builds their skills, but it builds their self-confidence for the future.
That's pretty amazing. I mean, that's something that we want to encourage as much as possible, and I'm surprised that wasn't already there.
Well, I was too. In fact, I knew that over 80% of America's colleges and universities have some reference to citizenship. In fact, one of the things we're working on is how do you evaluate whether they're actually carrying out that stated objective. And so when I read over the mission statement for the University of Florida and saw that missing, I was both disappointed and energized to see if we couldn't do something about it, and with these kids we have.
That's great. I mean, one of the topics of conversation right before you'd come in was how to encourage civic participation and civics classes on the local high school level. So there's this great debate going back and forth on what folks should do or what needs to get done. And then one young woman said, well, hold on a second. We live in Gainesville. This is an issue in Gainesville. Why don't we just do this? Why don't we volunteer to teach a workshop at a high school or what have you? It was really cool to just see that come full circle.
Yeah, there has been a collapse in teaching civics in America. I graduated from a Florida high school in 1955, and I had taken 3 one-year classes between the 7th grade and the 12th grade. My granddaughter, who also graduated from a Florida high school 2 years ago, took 1 semester. Wow. That, if you'd run the math, that means that she had 450 less hours of instruction in citizenship than her grandfather did. That's unacceptable, and we're trying to do something about that. In addition to just the quantitative side, much of what's left in civics is what I call spectator civics. It's like taking a class in music appreciation where you learn to understand what the orchestra is doing, but you don't learn to play any of the instruments in the orchestra.
Right.
And civics was never intended to be a spectator sport. It's a participatory activity. So we're emphasizing the skills and the values and attitudes of effective, active citizenship.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
I was also impressed with the wall downstairs. How did that come about?
That came about from some students had suggested that we needed a way to broaden the students' body's opportunity to have civil discourse. There was a man who had done something like this in some museums around the country, and he stepped forward and said, I'd like to try to do it in a university setting. We have a grant from the Knight Foundation, which is allowing us to proceed with this, and I think if you come back here in a year from now, that wall will be fully implemented.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Just even the prototype is really impressive.
Yeah. And one of the things about it, because of technology, you could have those same walls, same questions, same interactive response virtually any place in the world. And we're going to start spreading out the points of access to this civil wall.
Are you working with the other, you'd mentioned the 40 other similar centers?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about. What I was impressed yesterday when I was at Tulane in New Orleans, and a week ago I was at the Goldman Center at UCal Berkeley. And they're doing some exciting things. I think we're doing some exciting things, but there's not much of awareness of what we're doing. So my thought was there should be some convening source to get these centers that are focused on citizenship to come together, talk about what they're doing, successes, failures, ideas for the future, to accelerate the whole process. Cal, will you volunteer to be the convener of this?
I would love to. I don't see why we shouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Let's actually talk about
All
that.
right,
Maybe
great.
we can convene it out in DC.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.